Elections are confusing for a lot of people anyway, but when you have a special election, it gets really confusing. So joining us is the Secretary of State, Michele Reagan. Thanks for coming.
It's great to be here. We've got a lot we want to make sure people know about this special primary election.
So here's what's happening. Let me see if I can have this straight. You help clarify this. We have got right now a special primary happening because Trent Franks resigned his House seat.
Correct.
So you've got Democrats and Republicans that are now getting signatures and qualified for the ballot in a special primary.
Correct. So they already had to get their signatures. They had a tight little window. They've turned them all in. We had 13 Republicans and 3 Democrats. 1 Republican has since dropped out. So we've got 15 people that are going to be vying for this seat.
Okay. So you've got the people registered now that are now on the ballot. That election is going to happen what day? The special primary?
The special primary happens on February 27th.
Okay, so the end of February is the special primary.
Right. So you're still time to register to vote.
I was going to ask you that next. If they live in CD8, this is in one district.
Correct.
They have to
the West Valley.
They have to register when?
They have to be registered by the 29th of January.
Okay, so then just so people understand how fast this is going to move, there will be a primary on February 27th.
Correct.
Then April 24th is the special general.
Right. So whoever wins the primary, 1 Democrat, 1 Republican, will then go to the general election, which is a special general election, and that's on April 24th.
So the winner of that will be the congressperson from that district until the end of the year.
Correct, to finish the rest of Trent Franks' term. And here's where it gets really interesting, and that is whoever prevails better get ready to run again, because you will be running, if you wish to keep that seat, you will be running again in the regular August primary and November general.
So just so it's clear, there is going to be the special primary, then a special general.
Correct.
Then that person has got to get everything filed again, because there's the regular primary in August to try to get to win the general, which will happen in November.
Right, for a 2-year.
To win another 2-year term.
Correct. So what they...
Clear as mud to me.
What the special election is for is to finish out the remainder of Trent Franks' term.
Which ends, obviously, at the end of the year.
Right. And so what could get really... And it's conceivable that if somebody wins the special election, they may or may not win the general, because somebody who is running now, let's say, that doesn't prevail, could try again in August.
So somebody could conceivably be an incumbent for about 5 or 6 months.
Correct.
And so you could win the special primary, the special general, and lose in a primary or in the regular general election, but still serve a short time.
Yes.
And then turn it over to someone else.
See, you got it. You got it. But that's why we got this award-winning website, Arizona.vote, because it lays it all out, all the dates, kind of what people need to know. It's always the latest election information, Arizona.vote, very easy to remember. We get a lot of hits on that.
The dates are important for people because there are a lot of people, those dates escape me a lot of times too.
Sure.
I know, we all know when election day is.
You have a life.
Yeah, but you know when election day is.
Right.
But a lot of times we don't know where the registration deadlines are. And those are the important dates for people that want to vote. And all joking aside, these elections have big consequences. We know
this is a huge.
Yeah, this is huge for a congressional.
Watched.
And Trent has been an incumbent for quite a long time there, so now there are a lot of Republicans that would have never thought of challenging, which is why I think so many Republicans have gotten into the race, so there's a lot of choices. So someone that's a voter needs to know the dates, but they also need to go and make sure they investigate the candidates who are their best choices.
Right. So if someone lives in the West Valley and they're already registered, that's great. If independents can vote in this primary, they just need to decide which ballot they want to vote in. But you need to be registered by January 29th if you're not already registered, right, because early ballots get mailed out 2 days later.
So we need to make sure for the voter, let's take out the candidates for a moment. Voter important dates are January 29th to register.
Correct.
Then the election day is on February 27th for the special primary. Then the special general is in April 24th.
Yes.
If they want to register for that, it's 29 days before that.
Correct.
I'm not doing that math. The special general is April 24th. 29 days before that, you have to be just in CD8.
And that's for every election. So in order to vote in any election, You need to be registered 29 days before, because early ballots go out 2 days after that.
Okay. So what I'd like to do is, now that's kind of been cleared up, because we all know that the primary date in Arizona is in August. This is one special in just CD8.
Yes.
Everybody else is racing toward a primary in August that we need to talk about. I want to talk to you about that. And there's an issue that has come up about Senator McCain, and with all due respect to the senator, the questions about his health, the deadlines for that. So when we get back, one more segment, we'll talk about the other parts of this.
Because the process for U.S. Senator is completely different than the process for U.S. House of Representatives.
I thought I was clearing all this up, and now I'm even more confused. So Michele Reagan, our Secretary of State, is with us. We'll be back. All right, a crash course in the state of Arizona, more about the election laws, because it's an important thing. Michele Reagan's with us still, and it's important for people. We want to be informed voters, but the process sometimes gets confusing for a voter, and you're immersed in it every day. So we talked about this.
We're still learning every day.
We talked about this special primary and special general, but let's talk about the primary in August.
Okay, the regular state primary.
When is that?
That is end of August.
Okay, and so people can register now, and they 29 days before that date for the
then the cutoff
primary
is around, let's just say, the beginning of August.
So let's talk about John McCain for a moment. Senator McCain, the questions about the senator's health, and he says he's going to be back, which we all hope that he's going to.
Yes.
But in a case where someone is not, hypothetically, whether it's him or not, the cutoff date is what for if it's either going to be a governor's appointment to finish out a term, or it's going to have to be another special election for a term?
Okay, well, just to be clear, there isn't a special election for a U.S. Senate race. The governor appoints for U.S. Senate.
Okay.
Completely different than for the House of Representatives. So, but we do have a looming deadline, and that's May 30th. So May 30th is anyone who's running for Senate. Their deadline, that's their deadline to turn in their petitions. Because we do have people running also for Senator Flake's seat. So at that point, then ballots start to get printed. So should there be a resignation? And I don't even like talking about that.
I don't either. It's just informing people about the dates.
But should there be a resignation, then if that happens after May 30th, it's an appointment that the governor would make, and that appointment would go until 2020. Which would
be the next general election.
Yes. So what the appointment would be again, out remainders of terms.
Okay.
And in a case of, that is for congressional, in the case of governor appointing a U.S. senator, you fill out until the next time there is, an election.
So that's where it gets confusing to people, and I don't want to make it more confusing, but the senator's term is not up until 2022.
Yes.
But the laws are an appointment happens until the next general election, which would be in 2020.
Right.
So I'm not trying to be confusing, but people want that clarification just because they're curious as to how it works.
It's an excellent point, and I'm glad you brought it up. And let's say that then in 2020 there's an election for a U.S. senator. If it's for McCain's seat, the person would only be running for a 2-year term, and not a 6-year term, because we keep our U.S. senators staggered
in thirds.
So you would be running then for a 2-year term.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the conversation is only there because of the senator's illness, but he has been able to do his job for the most part. And I get asked the question a lot of times, and I didn't have the answers, which is why I called on you. As long as you're here to answer.
We get a lot of these questions, and you're right. It's very hard to talk about. So we're just totally speaking hypotheticals.
So when you look at the state of where we are now from when you took this office, there's a brand new website you talked about. It's Arizona.vote.
Arizona.vote.
And how much easier is it now for candidates and for voters to navigate and to use?
Oh, unbelievably a lot easier, just utilizing technology. So it used to be when I filed my papers, and I'll use Senator McCain as an example. When he came in to file his petitions to get on the ballot for his the last race he had planned a big chunk of time, because it normally was that somebody sat there and counted thousands of petitions, a person to qualify you for the ballot. Now we have scanners that do it we're testing it we're the only state in the country right now that has it, so it's kind of neat. And the petitions go through the scanners. The scanner is smart. It skips lines. It sees when things are crossed off. And a candidate is handed a sheet of paper and said, here you go. Here's how many signatures you have from these amount of counties, this amount of lines, sign here. So when Senator McCain came in to do it, it was like a 5-minute process. And he's like, I don't know what to do with all this extra time.
The rest of the day, yeah.
Right, so he ended up walking around and talking to our staff, which our staff thought was really neat, and then doing a press conference. So that's filing now. Most of it's online.
Has the mail-in ballot process made it easier or more difficult to do your job? Or has it not changed it at all?
It really hasn't changed our job that much, in the sense that ballots come from county recorders. So anytime you get a ballot or a voter registration card, all of that is coming from your county recorders. We actually don't do any processing of ballots. What it has done is increased turnout in some elections where sometimes, sometimes off elections don't see very high turnout.
Yeah, because people aren't going to go to the polls.
But if somebody is getting their ballot in the mail, I know I vote by mail. It's so much easier and convenient. You can, using Arizona.vote, check to make sure that the county has received your ballot. So we have a feature on there where people can go in, because sometimes you wonder, I mailed it in, did it get counted? So you can see, did they actually receive it?
All right, at the risk of confusing things, I'm going to ask one last question.
Okay.
I've got 30 seconds left.
Oh, dear.
In the special primary, independents can vote.
Correct.
That's all we needed to know. Thank you for coming down and clarifying this. We'll be back.